is paying us, is eating too much. We pay a lot of money now. Where I'm staying, that's the what I find him there. So I haven't got that money. I'm saying a cold, there's no fire, there's nothing. I'm making fire in the stove, and I haven't got money to buy the coal now. As only me, I'm getting money. My son, he doesn't get money. I get this house by myself. I was working there in magistrate court for 27 years in a restaurant.
So you're proud of?
I'm proud, really I'm proud, because all the little penny I've got, I didn't spend for nice time. I tried to build my house. So unfortunately, I'm suffering in this house. I haven't got food, I've got nothing.
Then if I'm coming to cut the customer, do the disconnection, I have to check according to the numbers. I'll be doing this disconnection for 12.79, eh? So then I'll be switching here off and cut the wire out and taking out this break. So this is how we used to do the disconnections.
This is our tools for Operation Kanyisa, you know. So there's a cut-offs here. So what we are doing now, we are trying to reconnect. This is a female which no one is working, that depending on pensions grant, it's a female of 7. Since the electricity has been cut off since last week Monday. Okay. Sibongile nawe nesisi akhulu small umfana ntombazana hayi siyasiletha inkomo baba ayine.
The Izinyoka are running scared. Because you have reported their crimes, our economy has saved millions. So thank you, South Africa, for putting them where they deserve to be. In a hole.
I've been arrested in several times, in different occasions. Bail conditions which were imposed to me that I must not attend meetings, I must not to go in such areas and areas. But, all my cases were withdrawn. I continue resisting. The state is not quiet.
Brighton, Hove and Worthing. This is BBC Southern Counties Radio.
And on public transport, still looking good on the trains. No reports of any delays or cancellations. You can update us 08459 570057. I'm Stephen Cranford, BBC Southern Counties Radio Travel.
I want to outline on behalf of my union, the PCS, and the members that we represent, why it's absolutely vital, depending on us winning the vote tomorrow, that you join the strike. The Labour government since 1997, there has been more privatisation of civil service work than either the government of Margaret Thatcher or the government of John Major. I cannot promise that this strike and this campaign will stop the job losses, will keep the offices open, will stop the attacks on pensions. But what I can tell you is if we don't do anything, not only will it all happen, but it will happen faster and faster and faster and embolden the government and the employers to attack us even more.
Simon Weller, I bring fraternal greetings from the Brighton Aslef branch. And being Aslef, being train drivers, we are quite aware of the efficiencies of the cuts. As we will see as passengers, you'll see how efficient the railways have suddenly all become overnight. They've been cut to the bone, the staff have been cut to the bone. We are a model of efficiency, and I'm sure that if it goes ahead, that the public sector will become such an also model of efficiency. So with that, I will say this is a battle we can't really afford to lose when it's something as fundamental as the basic structure that holds the society together, which is provided by the public civil service. This Labour cabinet is not averse to destroying people's livelihoods. They are not averse to attempting to destroy their trade unions.
Once I'd started on the railways, it's very clear that it is a fraternity, and the people that are working for the railway aren't just working in a shop or aren't just working in some factory. It is almost vocational that they are railwaymen and they are there to serve the passenger, the freight side, and it is all part of keeping the job going and keeping the railway. It's hundreds of years of history, and we really do appreciate that. I used to be very proud and very defensive of the railways, but now, no, I can't say that. I'll hold my head up in the same way to say that I work for the railways. It's a matter of shame now. Our forefathers, put it quite dramatically, they handed the railway to us so that we could hand it on as part of a common service. But no, it's just being stripped, raped even.
Another disaster on the main line out of West London, even before the last one has finished being investigated. Two trains...
If the fears of the police and fire crews are realised, this will be Britain's worst ever rail disaster.
Two trains collided at the height of the morning rush hour. Hundreds of people found their journey to work had turned into a nightmare.
He's prevented another blow to confidence in railway safety.
There would have been 3 rail accidents which could be directly attributed to privatisation or the process running up to privatisation. There were failures in all 3. These things had been pointed out prior to the accident. If they had been addressed, then that accident would not have happened. But all these things cost money. And because of the need for the private companies to be more efficient and save money, to make profit for the shareholders, these things were never carried out. Yeah, that was the idea, to cut subsidy, to bring fresh investment, and it would be cheap for the taxpayer and everything would be so much more efficient and shiny, but that's the whole lie. It never happened. There there is massive subsidy from the government, and the taxpayer is now paying a huge amount more than they were to the British Rail of 1997, 1998. Because BR was the most efficient railway in Europe. So, even though it was running it on a shoestring.
May I have your attention, please? Due to a fault with the electrical supply system at Merstham, services are subject to delay, alteration and possible cancellation. I am sorry for the disruption that will be caused to your journeys this afternoon.
Initially, the private companies brought some investment, but it was only in paint to give the impression that things were changing. But it was really just wallpapering over the cracks. Now, 6-7 years on, the cracks have become too big to ignore. Now there are so many competing operators that to get a through ticket from one end of the country to the other it's a logistical nightmare.
This is Minda Llorando. At this moment, I have a big problem about my son, Chinkil Llorando, 19 years old, because he has a kidney problem. He's a hemodialysis patient since he is 16 years old until now. My situation only, every day I walk to look for medical assistance for the dialysis of my son, because his life only for dialysis, but we have no money to pay. Every time I go to the Senate, I go to the Congress, I'm only asking, para lang sir, you can help me for dialysis of my son. If there is someone will help me, if they will let me borrow the money, we will go immediately to the hospital. Because they only accept the rich people. If you are rich, you can enter immediately. If you are poor, you better stay in the what we call this, beside places.
Constant na lang po.
Masig matapat na nila ko ba? Kaya jinky.
O sa gusto niyo magdaghan ng dialysis?
Gamot lang ma'am. Tapos punta ako sa social service.
Pagkatapos doon?
Dialysis ma'am ng anak.
Dapat lahat ang dadaanan mo, sabihan mo sa akin. Pero pharmacy sa kadadaan, para lahat ng mga hedging, nabibigla sila eh. Pero dito yan.
Today, I will go to the social service to ask information if they can give me a endorsement letter to the Senate. I go to my social worker and then I'm crying because my son was already like that. So my social worker told me, you know, like that, like he's doing like me, now your son is outpatient here. Why will you not prepare the money to pay the dialysis? No. You better accept your son. You better accept your son will die.
Sana ba yung mga doctors? Sige na, go. Punta ka sa bedside. I'm Mr. Delphine Soriano Jr. I'm one of the clinical instructor here in Quirino Memorial Medical Center. This is one of the premier hospital in the Philippines who is catering for training and education and also research for the Philippine patients. So as the moment, the flight of nurses in the Philippines is quite bad because of the several of Filipino nurses go abroad, primarily because of they want to gain financial stability and they could not gain that here in the Philippines. One primary reason or big reason is that the allotted budget of the government is not enough. The health budget is being cut because it is realigned to budget for national defense, for payment of our loan in the World Bank. So we're just paying our interest for the World Bank. I'm not a politics, but the thing is, what I feel, the burden of seeing these patients suffering, wherein some of the politicians, some of the businessmen gaining wealth, they have all the resources, but these patients are there.
I see that every 15 minutes,
Nasalita siya. Tay, kumusta na kayo, Tay? Ang ano? Ito? Namamanhid.
How many of your students are planning to leave the country?
Like what they said, all of them like to leave the country. But if you're going to look into the graduates of nurses every year, for about 20 to 25 or even 30,000 graduating nurses, okay? Several of these opted to go abroad. Should I say majority? Okay?
We reject today the dialysis because we don't have money to pay the dialysis. Here in the hospital, if you have no money, you have no dialysis. You can go home. Jinky will survive only if he cannot dialysis for 1 week or 10 days. 10 days only. Because after that, he must die.
Y quería morir en cuanto sea, sobre el agua. Cualquiera fábrica, ¿no? Cualquiera que tenemos aquí en Bolivia, pero todo está privatizado, pero agua nos hemos rescatado.
Sí, el Banco Mundial condicionaba al gobierno boliviano una cierta cantidad de préstamos a cambio de que el gobierno privatice el agua en Cochabamba. Quisieron convertir el agua en una mercancía, quisieron quitar a los seres vivos de un recurso tan vital para la existencia. A la semana de la firma del contrato con la empresa Agua del Tunari, las tarifas de agua aumentaban entre un 30 y un 300%. Quiere decir que cada familia en Cochabamba tenía que destinar 25% de sus ingresos solo para pagar el agua. Se eliminaban también las fuentes de agua que eran propiedades de los campesinos, y esta propiedad colectiva de las fuentes de agua, denominado usos y costumbres, pasaban a propiedad de las empresas mediante un mercado de aguas. Y finalmente la ley, muy sutilmente, muy entre líneas, indicaba que estaba prohibido acumular agua de la lluvia. Por lo tanto, el agua de la lluvia también, de manera muy disimulada, estaba privatizada. Lo que más ha indignado a la gente, la empresa Aguas del Tunari nunca dio la cara a la población, fue el gobierno el que, para defender el contrato y defender la ley, sacó al ejército y la policía.
Con 5 palos, manos vacías, si quieres pelear, pelearemos. En toda forma es agua, por eso la vida. Sin tomar agua nadie puede vivir, ni los animales, ¿no? Así, por eso yo no quiero que prevalecen en ningún país, ni en Bolivia, ni en otros países. Hay que defender, por agua hay que pelear.
Is this a good morning? Okay. So, bantu menenen. Okay. So, in event badala every month guys come. Okay. So, bensebenzisa ne-prepaid system. Okay. Okay, into sizoyenza yini into abayenzile bakhipheni second grade. Wabani sibongo? Okay, le yilist yabantu laba bathinyelwe ne like kumele ukuthi bakhanyiselwe. So lo munye wokugcina kusho ukuthi unenkinga bahlala beyi15 ekhaya. Sike kufuneka i-manpower because le enye bakhipha i-cable. So yabo bheka nje ukuthi baningi kanjani abantu bheka nje. Yeah.
So when the customer went to buy the electricity, he or she must have this card because they won't help him or her if doesn't have this card because this card has got the information for a meter. And this meter can tell you if maybe it's not happy and happy, that's a guy here which is happy now, and then when your units are dropping down, you'll be seeing this other guy which is not smiling. This one is on the red button. So it's telling the customer that she or he must buy, he must go and buy. But automatically, when it's appearing zeros here, this meter will be going off.
Prepaid were introduced by capitalists to generate profit. I mean, their purpose is not to give the resident access to electricity or water. It's to generate profit. Because I'm telling you now, when the electricity prepaid meter was introduced in 2001, they were saying, no one will have a problem of cut-off. But today people have got a problem of cut-offs.
In fact, okay.
Yeah, you see, free electricity.
The reason to introduce this, some of the customers, they don't have the money, like to pay the higher bills. They don't have that money, so it's so simple for those guys who don't have money to pay the bills. If you don't pay for if you don't buy, automatically you'll be not having electricity. This is the best way to survive.
Now the government
wanted to privatize Eskom. So it was looking to attract foreign business people to buy Eskom. Now, when capital wants to buy something, they want to make sure they can make a profit. So the first thing they do is increase the price for its customers. But in order to force them to pay, their method was to cut you off if you can't keep up with the payments. Eskom was cutting electricity at the rate of 20,000 houses per month. So this means that after a few months, Soweto would have been a dark city because there's only 150,000 houses in Soweto.
Hi, old age. It's terrible. I don't know why they're cutting the electricity in winter. And summer they don't cut it off. But winter, so especially July, every year on July we stay in this cold. They cut it off before they are putting to me the prepaid. But prepaid is worse. It's worse. Because when you put the heater, that wheel is running, I don't like a fly. 1, 2, 3 is off. Must run to the office. And when I bought the 20 rand, it's only 2 days, it's finished. I'm just look like people that she didn't buy any cut. So that is not a life. Sometimes I think I must take the poison I drink, let me die. Because I'm pulling heavy.
It started in 1979 and is still going on because the heir to Thatcher, the new Labour government, is still continuing with it. They're not repealing any of the old Thatcherite laws, so you know, it's not over.
Step by step, we are rolling back the frontiers of socialism and returning power to the people.
I would credit Thatcher with everything. This is the whole movement now is it's an international movement of removing workers' rights, removing anything that gets in the way of making a profit, basically. And if having your workers have holidays, if allowing a culture of long hours to grow within the industry, this suits them because it means they make more money. It's all about making money. None of it's about freedom and democracy and shit like that. But an inordinate amount of damage has been done in the last 20 years.
question of how what the World Bank does is a very broad one, but let's say that the World Bank promotes poverty reduction in its client countries. Now, we do that with a mix of financial assistance by lending money to those countries and knowledge assistance, where we provide assistance in terms of knowledge, best practice, global experience, in order that countries can undertake the necessary reforms. There is no area that I would say absolutely should not be privatized. It depends very much on the circumstances. There are gradations. I would say that water and electricity are maybe more amenable to privatization than health and education. But that doesn't mean that I would rule out privatization for health and education, nor will I always advocate privatization for water and electricity.
Good evening, I'm Ian McFadden, and you're watching Inside Money. Tonight we're looking at problems in Ruritania. Located far away on the other side of the globe, it's easy to think of Ruritania as an idyllic and beautiful place to live. But the lovely countryside stands in sharp contrast to the problems brewing in the country's capital. The government spends money wastefully, employing more people than it needs. It does provide some essential social benefits, but it also hands out subsidies to people who don't need them. Ruritania could simply go into arrears, that is, simply not pay its bills to foreigners. But none of these is a long-term solution. If Ruritania does nothing, its economic engine will grind to a halt. The good news is that Ruritania has consulted the IMF and developed an economic reform plan. At this point, maybe we should find out a little more about the IMF. Here's our economics correspondent, Iris Marie Fay. Iris?
Thanks, Ian. The various reform plans usually involve encouraging growth and opening the economy to outside trade, and taking away trade barriers that unduly protect local industry, stifling innovation and efficiency. And some inefficient state-owned industries may be privatized. It can be painful, but a country in this position really does have to tighten its belt.
Thanks, Iris Marie. The final result of all this effort and attention should be an improvement in the foundations of Ruritania's economy, and that will make life better for Ruritanians. This is Ruritania, well on its way to being a strong member of the global economy. Thanks for watching, and good night.
Good night.
The Washington consensus was a consensus between the U.S. Treasury, the IMF, the World Bank, three Washington institutions, about what was the best strategy for economic development. It argued that the best way for countries to grow was to liberalize, reduce trade barriers, and to privatize. And over the years, the IMF, the World Bank, the U.S. Treasury, all pushed this doctrine of privatization on developing countries. The IMF and the World Bank gave a set of loans, particularly in the 80s, that were called structural adjustment. The theory behind it was that the economies needed some assistance as they went through the adjustment of the structure to liberalize and to privatize. But the problem with them was that there were very strong conditions imposed. Countries were told to get this money, they often had to cut out education or health or other expenditures that were really quite vital. Enormous cost to many of the developing countries.
Like this one. When patient is under intubation with ongoing amubagging, is placed under cardiac monitor, and really patient is really in critical condition. This is an example of how the situation of Filipino people just placed in the government hospital, because this patient is really needs intensive care. Should be placed in a certain ventilator because only relative could provide for 24 hours is amubagging. If this relative would fail to do the amubagging, the patient will die. So what is the deficit here? The resources, the ventilator and other devices. This the institution could not provide because the patient need to pay. The patient would pay. They have to pay the ventilator. Privatization aggravates the access of poor people to health service, particularly health service. This is a very, very obvious example.
Good morning. I am Dr. Antonio Rivera. I am the medical director of one of the newest private medical hospitals in the Philippines, the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. We can do any type of cardiology services. We have strong pediatrics services. But we can do all of this in what we consider a good total healing environment. And it begins with we have patients come in and have a hospital which has a nice ambiance, which you will see as they walk into the lobby. As we walk into the lobby, see it is a friendly lobby for which patients feel that they're not walking into the hospital, but they're walking into a hotel, as you will see.
Botak-botak mo. Sini! Brunei, speaking na basta. Jinky! Because my life is not really, legal. That is an illegal connection. Galulid kasi.
Oo, may effect yan eh.
The wire was burned. I think overheat because many houses here are connect that illegal connection, like me. For how many months already, I cannot pay my bill in electricity because if I have some lots of money, I buy some medicine immediately, so I cannot pay.
Privatisation ethos of the 80s under Thatcher was simply, I think, it was come down to free money. They conned the British public into buying through shares stuff they owned already. We already owned the gas board. We owned British Petroleum. We owned the electric companies. We'd paid for their investment. The building over the last 50, 100 years, we already owned it as a nation, and it was being then sold to us as being, you can own a part of our infrastructure. Well, we owned it already. The railway was the unprivatisable public sector, but then the major government said they would rise to that challenge and provide an efficient railway through private competition. So they didn't introduce any competition. People believed the myth of privatisation and have been proved so sadly wrong over recent years. The actual day of privatisation, I don't think there was anything different. I just came to work, worked the trains, and they just ran the same as they always had. There was some legal manoeuvre where everything stopped running for 2 minutes at midnight and then started running again in the name of the new company. I think that was just, I have no idea why, they just had to stop for 2 minutes. But it was no different to begin with. When the initial privatisation, when we all ended up in different companies, it was viewed as a bit of a joke, particularly when the new uniforms appeared or the new branding and the badges. And with the company that employed me, Connex, it was confrontation was their method. They wanted to break the workforces. They wanted to, so that the workforces would agree to inferior terms, inferior protection, inferior pay.
Things are going wrong.
Yeah. They are looking for someone to make an example of. Don't worry about it, though.
Yeah.
So, you want to speak to Bob?
Yeah, well, a uniform.
Oh, yeah, come and get it.
I'll speak to you later about it, anyway.
Yeah. Right, it's your new uniform, Mr. Coulthop. 2 boxes. You could just sign these 2 forms.
This is Bob's pile of old uniforms, and as we get the new uniform, we hand back the old one. And this is an example of one of the old ones from the first company that took us over. So we went from British Rail to Connex, and Connex said we were a centre of excellence and gave us a new uniform, and they gave us this rather subservient blue and this lovely stripy tie. And this looks very similar to an English school uniform. They dress us like school children and they treat us like school children. This didn't really change much when we had a new company, when Connex was sacked, and we had a new company called Southern. And new company, new way of dealing things. We have a new jacket, but it's the same jacket, but it's green. And I have to say my wife hated these because her school uniform was this bottle green. So. Yeah. And this is the new uniform. until we get a new company again and we'll have another uniform.
Can't you take it to the car? Right. Cheers, Bob. Okay. Thank you, mate.
Why wasn't the old one good enough anymore?
Well, I don't know. It's just, I think they just wanted a fresh start, really. It's it does seem a bit wasteful, but it's what seems to happen these days. That they feel that it's worthwhile, you know. Yeah.
What it says to me?
We can't discuss this matter with you. This is not a police matter concerning who is allowed to have water and who's not allowed to have water. Who's allowed this meter and who's allowed that meter.
But the police,
we are here to enforce the law. We're not here to install meters.
We are here to enforce the law by making sure that people are clean the installation of water. Is the way you are saying it?
Yeah. Now you can twist the words as much as you like. Thank you very much.
No, but you're unfair. You know, these bylaws are unfair because they don't state about the person who doesn't want to.
Guess what? Life is unfair.
No, I'm not talking about life. I'm talking about what is happening. These guys are working for other subcontractors from Johannesburg Water, so they are cutting off. That is connecting water for those who doesn't agree in the installation of prepaid system. So that's the whole range. So we are here, we are protected by cops.
This is a privately owned company. They're making profit out of water. Privately owned, they pay shareholders profit and dividends. That's a privately owned water. It's Johannesburg water. It's there to make profit, not to serve the community. Shareholders are going to get their dividends out of their investment. What do I get in return? Out of the poverty that I've been living in. This government, this is not development, my friend. This is something that should have been done. That our government has just given someone a property right to water. It says someone has the right to own water. Who's that man? Am I a man not enough to own water? What's wrong with me?
What was the charges?
What have I just explained to you? That difficult.
But what's what it's in?
Ba interfere ba ne ba le mo jarteng ya bona ba gana gore ba kene ba foster gore ba kene maponisa na le teng go seng ana sile a tshwara batho ba le maditse le nkgono wa kwa ntlong e nkgono wa kwa ntlong there's nothing changed. Nothing changed. Come to my house and see. And then we enter here.
So do you think this has to do with privatization?
Yes. Yes, it is. They're selling all the companies and then they're making money. The people hasn't got place to work. They don't have work. They are staying here. They are naughty, you know, because of this hunger. No food, no nothing. But the food is going to another countries. The clothes is to the another countries. Here we don't get nothing.
Okay, boy.
In water, in electricity, and in some aspects of transport, there's been a substantial shift towards the private sector. I don't think that has much to do with the World Bank. It has to do much more with technological considerations and a general environment of people have been seeing successes in around the world. There are a couple of responses to why the critics are saying that the World Bank is always pushing privatization. One is, I think critics will, by definition, always find something to blame the World Bank for. I think that some of these critics just as much will oppose any kind of privatization whether or not it helps poor people. And we have to be aware of that as well, that there are some privatizations that actually help poor people. And we will unashamedly support those, and we will defend those, even though our critics will say, oh, the World Bank is pushing privatization.
I think the reason was basically ideological. And there were, of course, some interest that there was money to be made in the process of privatization. For instance, part of the privatization was that there were many water concessions. The companies that provided water to people, and those were natural monopolies. That is to say that there's only one firm that provides that. When you privatize, you can sometimes raise the price, generate enormous amount of profits. And so there were a few companies that saw the profit opportunity, pushed the IMF, the World Bank, to push these privatization initiatives.
Sí, yo considero que el Banco Mundial utilizó a Bolivia como una especie de pequeño laboratorio, un conejillo de Indias, un experimento. Yo creo que el Banco Mundial y las transnacionales tienen un concepto totalmente equivocado de nuestro pueblo. Piensan que somos un pueblo miserable, que no tiene dinero para dar solución a sus problemas, y piensan que somos un pueblo ignorante, que no sabe conservar y preservar el agua. El gobierno durante el conflicto procedió a la detención de una gran mayoría de los líderes sindicales y los portavoces de la coordinadora, pero la intención del gobierno no solamente era detener, confinar a varios de nosotros, sino eliminarnos físicamente.
¡Miren lo que me están golpeando! ¡Carajo, yo la policía que te cabrones! ¡Ahora cuidado que me golpean!
El ejército salió con francotiradores vestidos de militar o vestidos de civil, y en estas protestas murió un joven, Víctor Hugo Daza, de 16 años, y fueron heridos más de 30 jóvenes y mujeres producto de estos francotiradores.
City flyer service to King's Cross Thameslink is delayed by approximately 10 minutes due to a broken down train at London Bridge. Please listen for further announcements. I'm very sorry.
This is not cheap. One big beneficiary. This is where a lot of the money goes. The government gives money to the private companies to run a better service, but we end up with new uniforms. So it's the company Wensum, supplies to the Queen, and they get the money. So we don't get a better service, we get new uniforms. very important. Yes.
They certainly uniform manufacturers have done very well, because there's over 20 different companies now instead of just one. And then I think it was a lot of pot luck. If you was lucky enough to be at a depot that went to one of the companies that were good, then you did quite well. Unfortunately, we ended up with one of the worst ones, so we felt it more than others, really.
When the Conservatives initially privatised the railways, they broke it up and they put the track and signal and property side of it to a company called Railtrack. The operation of the trains, which is running the passenger services, were let out on franchises, but the responsibility for maintaining the infrastructure lay with Railtrack. And Railtrack would then charge the private franchises an access charge to use the infrastructure. And unfortunately, Railtrack viewed themselves as, well, they had shareholders, they had a responsibility in law to their shareholders, and that was where it ended. They didn't have a responsibility to the railways. Railtrack didn't actually have any staff to speak of, because it was just contractors who would contract other people and contract contractors, and it almost became a no questions asked system. You know, we don't care how you do the job as long as you do it and you do it cheap. And what was happening is the job wasn't being done at all until we had the watershed of Hatfield. The Hatfield accident was the result of a piece of rail collapsing, and it didn't just break, it actually disintegrated whilst a high-speed train was passing over the top of it, which caused the high-speed train to derail at speed, and this resulted in the death of 4 passengers and 2 staff. Now we drive train, drive train, change hands, drive train. Now, we used to have half an hour here where everyone used to nip up the room and have a quick cup of tea and then have a chat and then back out and drive trains. Whereas now, we don't have that half an hour. We're just here to work.
They can't do without us, drivers. They just can't do it. They'd love to, but they have to have drivers. It's other areas, the track and that which has changed a lot. What for? You know, as if different train companies can compete. You know, like buses or aeroplanes. It was just the government, the Conservatives seemed to think you make trains like aeroplanes, you know, offer different services, you know. Forget the fact that we're all running on the same lines. One breaks down and the other one's stuck behind it. It's not like a bus you can just overtake. Mad.
We're following another train. They've put a stopping train out in front of us, which is just shows what a mess it is. We're an express passenger train, and they've put a stopping suburban train out in front of us.
Who decides?
Whoever pays.
So, ano na? I'm worrying already. I saw my son. He's not good. He's not feeling well. This morning, after I washed the clothes, I bought only 3 pieces of medicine. But tomorrow morning and then this evening, 12 o'clock, he will not drink anything. He will not drink anything because I also bought 1 kilo of rice to let 2 of my son eat and then my grandchildren. Almost 3 days, if I cannot produce, I think my son will not live longer. Because at this time he's not, I said he's not feeling very well this time. So I pray to the Lord, even I'm washing this morning, I pray na maybe tomorrow I can find even dialysis only. Even dialysis only.
Amanda, viva Soweto Aristocratic Committee, viva! Viva Anti-Transition Forum, viva! Phansi ngo-JW phansi, phansi ngo-ESCOM phansi, phansi ngama-Capital phansi, viva the working class, viva! Phambili ngamanzi wamahala phambili, sayisaha i-prepaid sayisaha. Prepared sayisaha. Prepared sayisaha. Government esitindezelayo phansi. Viva complete prepare viva. Okay, abangangazi ngubonga nokalibisi sibonga ngihlala ePimville. Ngimembe Soweto Aristocratic. Abanye bayangazi abanye abangazi. Abanye bayangithanda abanye abantu. Abanye bafisa nokuthi abanye bafisa nokuthi ngifeke Okay, ngosancela but kumani enivakashi arande Soweto bashilo enaledi abagogo basenaledi bayazilwela thina sohlolwa yini emiddle amandla
We don't like what they are saying and what they stand for. In order to protect ourselves, we do not target Soweto Crisis Committee itself, but we would target individuals, those who would go and connect people illegally.
we would pursue those. That we will then protect ourselves through the police. And we have spoken to the police in Soweto. They are aware, the South African police. So that's what we would do. I'm not afraid, you know. I'm no longer afraid. I used to be afraid before, but now, you know, I've learned a lot when I was in prison. 2 months, 11 days is nothing. There'll be a time where they will say, we give you 15 years. Bongan, you know, I have to expect such a sentence, so I always prepare myself. And I even always prepare my family that, you know, it's much easier when you get a call that I've been arrested. It's much easier. One time you'll get a call, they say, I'm dead. You know, how are you going to cooperate with that situation? You know, so I always prepare my family. You know, I expect everything. Yes, PC.
I just pray that he will come back. Okay. Saved. What I'm fearing is that I can lose him anytime. That's what I'm fearing. So it's either he got injured or get killed. I don't know what I'm going to do without him. I can't imagine my life without him.
Years now are paying you here in the hospital until we're down because we have no sources anymore. I sell my house, I sell all of my items in the house for only paying this hospital. I think time will come. We cannot dialysis. The dialysis is very, very expensive. Di ba, Ma'am Sheila?
Next dialysis mo pa, dialysis ko mo. 8 lang ang hemoglobin. BP next.
My My dream for my son is to be a kidney transplant. If Jinky will transplant, it's good. But the kidney transplant is very expensive. It costs 350,000. But when you total that, the dialysis twice a week, and then the medicine, I think it's more. Not the transplant, my son will already survive. So I dream to be a kidney transplant.
Pero la población derrotó en las calles y los caminos al ejército y la policía, y más bien la policía y el ejército tuvo que replegarse a sus cuarteles. Ese día no existían policías, no existían militares, no habían políticos, no habían autoridades, no había quien mandara a la población.
Victoria contra el modelo económico neoliberal.
La gente en la Guerra del Agua demostró que es posible oponerse a los procesos de privatización del Banco Mundial y de las transnacionales. Demostró que es posible organizarse, unirse y vencer el miedo, y demostró que es posible vencer. Pero ante todo, la principal victoria para nosotros ha sido la capacidad de recuperar nuestra voz, nuestra palabra y la capacidad de poder decidir como personas.
Modern economic science has identified a huge range of these instances where markets don't work. The old view that markets necessarily lead to efficiency is just wrong. Sometimes the reason that the invisible hand, which is the way Adam Smith talked about it, the market leads as if by an invisible hand to economic efficiency, the reason the invisible hand seems invisible is that it's not there. So the IMF has been wedded to this ideology, partly because it's wedded to a particular part of the political spectrum, wedded in part to special interest, has taken a particular perspective that doesn't reflect modern economic science. But unfortunately, it's trying to sell it as if it were economic science.
I'm really, really saddened and angry about this kind of situation where the Philippine government put more budgetary allocations on payment of debt, on payment of the interest of our debt, which actually not my debt. It is not my children's debt. It is not the debt of this individual. It is the debt of the politicians, of those who consume these financial resources. What we are accepting right now is the burden of having a bad health service, which is supposed to be provided by the government. But what I can do is just only express what I feel and extend my hand to this kind of person.
The privatisation of Britain's railways is a good example of how not to do it. if they expect that the private companies are going to go there and provide a social service and provide proper investment and provide something long term, then it's a good example that they won't. The private global companies are just simply after making money. It is simple as that. Capital and globalisation will just look for the most efficient route for making money and will move from one to the next. They won't provide a long-term solution because a long-term solution does not give them the short-term returns.
If Operation Kanyisa was not there, I'm telling you know, it was going to be difficult for the residents, and ESCOM, you know, was going to do the way he likes to the residents. But through SCC, we managed, you know, to stop that, so it should be a dark area. Today, so it is not a dark area. It's because of us. Light. It's lighting. What's over here?
Okay.
So for a good feel,
yes, okay,
you know, I'll continue the struggle until I die. You know, that's my vision. That I'll continue to fight until I die. Because I'm not doing it for myself, also I'm doing it for my children. So that because what affects me tomorrow will affect my children. So I have to try to build a foundation for my children to live a better, you know, life, you know, not being faced with similar problems that are facing us today.
Amanda! Sambanaye,